fucking do this.
All right. Okay. Okay, holy smokes. I'm so excited for this. It's a big milestone for the podcast, man. We're 50 episodes in. First time filming the show. First time having the video element with one of my favorite people in the whole world, Tristan Maroney. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be doing this again for the third time in a new space and on video. So yeah, super hyped to be here.
I have so much that I want to ask you today. There's so many things that we can cover, from, you know, music to, you know, sports and all that stuff. I think we're going to probably start with the album that you and I worked on together in 2021, which was so much fun. I was involved in the capacity of mixing and mastering, and, you know, worked from your Logic sessions. So for people that don't know, Tristan is a singer, rapper, engineer, producer. We've been friends for over a decade. We met back at Nimbus, and no, we met at Apple, but we had both gone to Nimbus. And yeah, and just like clicked right away, and you know, had a lot of really similar interests and taste in music, and yeah, we started collaborating, recording songs together. One thing led to the next, and that eventually got us, you know, working on a project together, which was really, really fun. So let's dive into that a little bit. Maybe we can break it down. You know, I want people who are listening to kind of get an idea of what goes into actually like making a song, like getting a song from an idea in your head to the microphone, to Logic, Pro Tools, and then to people actually being able to digest it and consume it on social media and on Spotify and all that. So let's dive into the album.
Totally. So I've wanted to do a full-length album for a long time. I think it's really challenging as an artist to find time to put in and do things properly, you know, get the vocal stems, find an engineer to work with, have it mastered properly, and then find time to actually distribute it, market it, push it, and feel confident in the work that you put out. So I had actually just come out of university, and I felt like I had some time off, and I could really focus on making, like, you know, a 10 or 15 song album. You wanted to work with me, which was amazing. So I was confident in the final product being marketable and kind of on par with whatever else is out there. So I think the album's 12 songs. It's called Totally Maybe. And yeah, it was a process. I think I started making a few songs almost every day, to the point where I was reaching like 40 or 50 tracks, and kind of narrowed that down to what stems was I going to invest in, and narrow this down, because as an artist, I think creatively you're pumping out verses, choruses on a pretty frequent basis. And it's almost like a sketch pad, like a messy sketch pad where you're brainstorming all these ideas. And then when you have a chance to step back and look at it a little more closely and carefully, you can realize like, oh, this is really a full song, and it has, you know, a story, or it makes sense, and it's album worthy. And then when you go through that process, you whittle it down to 12 songs, and that's what I shared with you. It was fun going back and forth, trying to tweak songs, perfect them, and again, just making them to the standard you want. And that was my first project. It came out in February of this year.
Yep.
And yeah, it's been great to have something done, put out there, and I can kind of look forward to what I'm doing next.
That's so cool, man. I know how special it feels to have a body of work with your name on it, being able to see it like on your phone and be like, just feel proud of it. Like it's finished, you know, like it took a lot to get there, so many steps, but the reward of like being able to share it, like airdrop songs to people of like, hey, check out my album, it's done, you know, such a cool thing. I have some questions about like you know, when you're you said you did way more than 50 or way more than 12 songs. It was close to like 40 or 50 that got whittled down to what actually ended up being on the project. When you are writing a song, is it, I'm going hunting for beats online, find something that inspires me, then write lyrics that make me feel that way? Or is it, let me dig through my book of rhymes and find a beat that matches what I've written here? Or does it change?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it definitely does change. Over the years, I've learned that my voice works in certain keys, E minor, A minor specifically. So I'll go on BeatStars, YouTube, wherever I feel I can find music. If I am to write something for this project, I actually didn't write down anything per se. I was freestyling verses, choruses, and then kind of mashing up my own recordings to build a song. So that process was very unorthodox, very new for me. But it felt more natural. Like just the way that things were delivered and the cadence that I was building was a lot more random and new.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're writing, you can get caught up writing the same verse for a long time, trying to perfect it. And then when it comes time to perform, it doesn't sound authentic, in my opinion.
Sure.
So you've just been staring at it too long, saying the same words. And when you just listen to a beat, I feel like it brings out certain emotions and things based on what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And for that reason, the lyrics can match up better.
Yeah.
So that was for this process. If I do write,
Yeah.
I'll try to sit and write. But lately, I feel like I don't want to spend so much time writing because I can record 3 songs without writing in a couple hours. And if I try to write a song, I could spend, 2 hours and not even be complete. So it's more of like a time efficiency thing at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, you're going to get different results as well. Like some songs you don't want necessarily to feel really rigid and structured. You want like a party song, you kind of want to, you want it to feel loose. You almost want it to be like freestyle-y, just like in the moment. Like, and I remember you said that at least one of them you did that way, right? Like it was almost, you were just kind of, you sent me your like not warm up takes, but like you just going off on the mic over the beat, and and that ended up being the song, right? I can't remember which one it was.
I think it's Beside Me.
Yeah.
It's the second song. I think the project itself has, well, when I gave it to you, it had the musical stems.
Yeah.
But for vocals, I think it was like 2 or 3 tracks.
Tops,
Like it was
yeah.
super one
Super
take.
minimal. Yeah.
And again, that one feels like, at least when I listen to it, knowing the process, like it sounds like I was performing it. Really like an acoustic type venue or something where someone just records the performer. There's not a lot of cuts or like change in the air and the voice. So yeah, again, it just sounds more authentic.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was really nice for me as the engineer to be able to work from your session, like pick up from where you left off. And for people who aren't super familiar with how the whole mixing process works, basically, traditionally a mix engineer was the same person who tracked the song. Or like back in the day, like 50s, 60s, there was no such thing as the mix engineer. That's become sort of like a newer thing. But nowadays, that person plays a very clutch role in the process of making an album. And so what Tristan and I did was, you had the Logic sessions with your vocals in it and the beat, and you had spent like a good amount of time getting a really good sound, like, the right reverb, the right, like some delays, beat cuts, and just creating like the vibe, creating the flavor for like what you wanted it to sound like, essentially. And so that was really nice for me in my role to not have to kind of start from scratch. What we did after that was, I believe you bought the stems, sent the stems to me separately. And for people who don't know, stems are like the individual pieces of the song. So like the keyboards, the drums, the guitar, the synthesizer, all on different tracks. So Tristan sent me the Logic session with his whole, foundation.
I think I put the stems in there as well.
And
for
then
you.
organized the stems in the session. So I just, unzipped that zip folder and I was like off to the races, and it was phenomenal. So well organized, and then just kind of without undoing what you had built, try to polish it a little, embellish it. Obviously, when you get stems, you're able to create a lot more dynamics. You've got control over every instrument. And I think we got some pretty good results. I was definitely happy with how things turned out. I know you were, and that was such an efficient, enjoyable experience for me.
Thank you for saying that. I think my mindset in Logic when I'm tracking and I'm mixing and I'm trying to get it to the point where I feel it's ready to hand off, I never have the thought of, okay, he'll make it better for me and I don't need to fix anything. It's rather like I'm at a point where I feel I've mastered this to the best of my abilities. And if you can do anything more, great. So I feel that extra 5, 10, 15%, whatever it adds with the stems and the mastering, great. But ultimately, I'm not doing the bare minimum just to hand you some garbage to go fix.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, the process was great. I think efficiency wise, we banged out the album in like 3 or 4 months from like the first day I recorded a song to it being like mastered and ready for DistroKid. So yeah, definitely really fast. But I feel like low key, it was 10 years in the making through every song I've done up to this point, going to Nimbus, collaborating with different people. So it all kind of made that 4 months possible.
Totally. No, and that's a really good point that you bring up, because I think a lot of younger artists, whoever they're looking up to online, Instagram reels and YouTube clips, and I don't know, there seems to be this misunderstanding that this is easy, or that you can be lazy about this, or it doesn't require a lot of work, but it felt easy for us because we've both been at this 10 plus years. And like you just said,
speaking the same language, able to track down the issues and communicate them properly.
Yeah.
I think when you have that same background, it makes it a lot easier to see eye to eye.
100%.
Yeah.
Things were really well recorded, which is like another, massively underappreciated element. More often than I would like, am sent things to mix that are very badly recorded, that I'm spending, 90% of the time fixing, and then the rest of it like getting it to a place that's like acceptable even.
Yeah.
And I get that. I've been the artist. I know what it's like when you're in the moment and you get an idea and you've got to record it quickly. I got to get these ideas out. However, my God, I mean, when things are recorded well, that snowball effect it is so noticeable that the song almost like finishes itself. When things are well recorded, things fall into place so nicely, as opposed to having to spend so much time fixing. So that was another, massive bonus. I'm curious, like, can you talk to us a little bit about your mic choice at the time, your setup, the room, things like that?
Yeah, so at the time I had a studio apartment in North Vancouver in Lower Lonsdale, and basically had an Aston isolation piece at the top of my stand, and I was using an Aston mic as well, a condenser. So that was running through a Focusrite interface, like, the cheapest entry-level version. And I've heard from countless people in the industry that if you have a good song, if you have a good performer, the interface should not be the make or break part of this chain.
No way. Yeah.
A good song will go through that and will do well. So that was kind of my mindset, and then tracked everything in Logic. I would record with the actual like wave file because I didn't know if I was going to go ahead with the stems at that time.
Yeah, okay.
So I would just track that way. And again, just freestyling, cutting up pieces, coming back to songs, leaving songs. Any artist can attest to building a project and how stressful it is because you're trying to perfect so many things. But I did feel like I had an appropriate setup. And again, just knowing I could hand over the files really just felt like, okay, from a sonic perspective, when this goes live and it is done, it's going to sound good on everything, whether it's AirPods, a Bluetooth speaker by the pool, you know, whatever it may be.
The Aston Halo I have not had a lot of experience with, but that's basically like a wraparound shield behind the mic type of thing. Did that interfere with you like reading lyrics at any point, or like hold on? Because I know so many people are like, they're doing this with their phone, like, or like this sometimes, I have to correct them. But did that not get in the way, I guess? Like
with this project, I didn't write anything, so it didn't become a problem. There were a few choruses that I would have to layer, and I would try to rewrite the chorus so I could say the words because I didn't know my own lyrics. And that was kind of an issue, but I think the reflections it catches and the isolation that it does, especially in an apartment setting, is going to outweigh that little issue of reading lyrics or anything. So
nice.
I think it made a big difference in, again, just clarity of the beds.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, just getting, it's like food, you know, and I've said this a million times, but it's like, you know, when you have good ingredients, you don't need a lot. You know, like a Subway sandwich with all the sauce, every sauce.
That's what I get.
And
though.
like all the veggies and that thing that they call bread can't hold a candle to like a French baguette with butter and maybe ham, you know, like they're so different, but the one that wins every time is the one with good ingredients. And recording is no different. You know, you set things up for success, do it properly. You may have not had the most expensive equipment in the world, but you had the experience and the skills to use it to its full potential. And yeah, I mean, it just really speaks for itself. It turned out so nice. Were you like actively listening to anyone else at the time, other artists? Were you influenced by any particular sound at the time? I know for me, when I'm working on something, I try not to, like, I get into what I call album mode, and I try and like not, I mean, the influences are influences, but you know, sometimes we get in the habit of wanting to copy other things. For example, do you remember, like, at the time, was there a particular artist or sound that you were into, or was it sort of like, I really want to do my own thing here?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was listening to a lot of Mac Miller and this guy Ryan Caravio. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, and I sent you a couple of his songs.
I remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah, the way his vocal is mixed and the way it sits in a mix was pretty unique. And that was kind of the reason I actually listened to a lot of his projects and felt like I didn't want to mimic his writing style or beat selections, but it was purely for how does this mix sound? Where's the vocal sitting? Because that really differentiates between artists and mix engineers. Like some people bury the vocal and it's really not a prominent part of the song. And then other people like Travis Scott or some of the, you know,
the
more
trap stuff. It's just, it's the only thing in the mix. Like
it's like an a cappella with bass.
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, what sells, and that's awesome. But again, just as an artist, you want something specific to your needs. And I felt like, showing you Mac and showing you Ryan was like, okay, this is kind of what I want to emulate.
Right.
And it gives you something to work off of.
Yeah. Sonically speaking, right? Yeah, definitely, and that's important. Like I mean, you did that like as automatically, like knowing that, but a lot of, you know, younger artists, I'll definitely ask for that specifically, like you know, because people don't necessarily have the vocabulary to illustrate what might be in their head into words or into mixing terms or things like that. So they'll just say, "I like this artist." They might not even know why, but it's just like, I'll listen to some stuff and I'll get a pretty good idea of what they're trying to say, right? Just based off of some examples. So yeah, that's a really helpful technique I've found. So yeah, I mean, I remember at the time we were talking about you gigging and stuff like that as well. And then, you know, we're still coming off of the end of the pandemic. Where are you at now with like, maybe getting back into doing like live shows, open mics, stuff like that? Is that still a focus of yours, or?
Definitely. I think, yeah, post-pandemic, everyone's been leaving the pandemic at a different pace. I was still in university technically until May of this year, and then started working for Monster Energy, doing marketing for them. That's definitely consumed a lot of my time. So I'm looking to get back into it and have more flexibility with, you know, my art and perform and get back into it. What's cool about working for Monster is we've done a ton of festivals and events, and I've been a part of a lot of things I want to be a part of on my own through my music. So it's been a good like peek at what it could look like. And, you know, through these events, because you're there first and last to leave, I've gotten to see the openers and the closers and everything in between, and see the growth and the larger fan bases and smaller ones. And go backstage and see, you know, what the day-to-day looks like for everyone involved, the artists, videographers, photographers, etc. And yeah, I feel very privileged to have those opportunities, and it's given me a lot of insight that I can hopefully take towards my own career. And yeah, I think 2023 will be the year where I realistically continue putting out more singles, work on another project, and do more live stuff.
That's so cool that you're like in the thick of it there at these music festivals. What of the things that you've seen, like what has surprised you the most about like maybe higher level artists that you've had a chance to see the behind the scenes of? Is there anything that's really been like, oh wow, I didn't realize it was like that at this level?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. The one shocking part is just how people come and show up. It's like you can have artists performing all day with smaller crowds, and you have Wu-Tang show up or Rick Ross or any of these big names, and it's like all of a sudden it's, you know, shoulder to shoulder. Everyone knows the lyrics.
Yeah.
And then when the show's done, everyone disappears again.
Interesting.
And it just shows like the level of fan bases that these people have, like true diehard fans who come out just for them in a festival full of artists. And it kind of shows that dynamic of fan bases throughout, which is always interesting to see. But yeah, I would just say there's diehards that are rapping or singing every word, filming the entire show. And you just see kind of that love going back and forth between the performer and the fans. So yeah, that was probably the most interesting thing to see.
Pretty like stark realization. Hey, like it's just like 14 fans and then all the fans. Oh, someone big must be on stage right now. Like, and I bet you've seen a lot of that too. Like, you know, opener acts where they're gigging for like friends only maybe, and there might be however many people out in the field there, but they're still like giving it, you know, giving 110%. And how many times have we heard that story over the years? Like, you know, of artists that are big now that we just take for granted that they're big. Like, oh, they're huge, they're selling out BC Place, but we forget that at one point they were performing to 0 people or 2 people.
I think Jack Harlow says he was doing 8 people shows like just a few years ago.
That's so funny you brought Jack Harlow up, because I was talking to a friend who actually is like has a relationship with Jack Harlow, and they've stayed in touch through the years because my friend of mine was like one of those only people that was at that Jack Harlow show in Vancouver.
Really?
And like got to, because he was there, stayed for the whole show, got to meet him. Like he was so grateful that like those few people hung out and stayed to the end, that he invited them backstage. You know, they had drinks together and things like that, exchanged numbers. My friend's still in touch with Jack Harlow to this day. Just went to a recent show of his where it was like sold out, and like got a chance to meet up with him after, and he like remembered them, and it was just like this beautiful story. Like they were there at the beginning, and there he is now, like just at the top of the world. And it happens, man, but for him it happened fast. Like he went from like low, like nobody knows you, to, I mean, he's one of the biggest rappers out at the moment. Yeah,
I think What's Poppin', when that came out, is that the song name, What's Poppin'?
I only really got into Jack Harlow like a year ago, to be totally honest. So I don't remember, that must have been one of his older ones, like from his mixtape.
I think when that came out, he immediately did Jimmy Fallon
Okay.
and got like public television across America.
Right.
I think more recently he's quit smoking and drinking, and he says he wants to do that to be the best in the world. So clearly you just see like a high level of dedication and focus
Yeah, that's a good word.
and willing to
dedication, for sure.
sacrifice, because there is a party scene in this world, a very real one. And I can see how people get caught up in it.
Yeah.
So if he is truly focused on just purely making the best music and being consistent, he's going to get more endorsement deals. He's going to tour with more people, and he's treating it like a business, clearly, which is amazing. But yeah, it happened really fast.
He's a special character. I mean, with the hip hop world especially, it's not particularly sexy to be sober. You know, like the whole world of hip hop is built on like ego, parties, flaunting your wealth, like you know, girls, Ciroc and Belvedere. I mean, here he is like in a hoodie, you know, just like no jewelry, just like so humble, but killing it. He's kind of an enigma in that way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Definitely rap's been known to be a popularity contest in a lot of ways, how you dress, what car you have, all these things. There's been people who don't go down that road, and that's fine too. I think everyone just has to carve out their own lane, right? If you're being authentic in what you're doing, I think people will appreciate and respect that. So you kind of have to hold true to what you're doing and not try to completely copy someone or be someone else, because that's when somebody will see through you, and your fans are probably going to see through you as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just got to find your lane, stay in it. I think that's probably the best method.
I think that's like kind of one of the secrets, really, is like if you are genuinely good but you're unique, like that's just gonna work. It's just gonna, like, everyone is dying for something new. You know what I mean? Look at the Billie Eilish phenomenon. Like, people just absolutely adore her because she's so fucking different. You know, like she's whispering. You know what I mean? I'm not particularly a fan of it, but I know friends of mine are. Lots of people are, and it's like when she came out, it was such a tsunami of just like, she was everywhere. Her face was on billboards, ads, campaigns, you know, and I didn't get it. For me, I didn't get it, but for my personal taste. But at the same time, my producer brain was like, I get it. Like, people are just starving for something new, and here she is filling that need, just like something completely unique, something that we haven't heard before, right? And uniquely herself, but still good, because a lot of people are uniquely themselves and just weird or unapproachable, unsellable, you know, or maybe it's just like the craft isn't refined enough yet. But she sure as shit was.
I like that she had recorded, I think, her first project in a bedroom, like at home, and had her brother mix it or something.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Like on a TLM 103, just like real low budget, you know?
Yeah, I think Drake used that mic for one of his projects early on too. It just shows like you don't need to pay the best people to engineer your songs initially. Like if you have the raw talent and you're able to formulate things on your own,
Yeah.
then like that stuff's going to come. The larger names, the higher production, the better videos, whatever, that's going to come with time. You want to have some raw talent to like put down yourself and work with your own people, and put out projects on your own. I think that's a lot more helpful, because if you think you can buy your way into putting out a good song, you probably might get lucky, but realistically, it's not a good template to live by.
Yeah, and definitely not a lot of longevity in that, or none. I mean, that's just like that's consumed and then you're it's over with, and that now what, right? There's if I'm not mistaken, I believe Lorde was a similar story to Billie Eilish, like like garage band, really low budget, like bedroom recording. And do you remember that? You know, she came out with Pure Heroin, and it was like tennis courts and I wanna be royal. It was like all those bangers. Like Lorde came out of nowhere too, with a very unique sound.
I've never even heard of Lorde.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
I'll send you some stuff of hers after. You're gonna like it. It's like not any one genre, but it's like, but there's like hip hop in there, and she's singing. It's really cool. I don't know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing a similar thing about her, like just, you know, working with like a friend or some, like, you know, producer in you know, home studio shit, and then just blew up. But like the original sessions were like what got used, because it was just like so good. It was so raw and real, and like not recorded badly, like usable. So anyhow, you know, don't anybody try and go and like copy that, you know, but it happens. And if you are real, if you are true, like, you know, poke through the surface, you know, it'll work, I think. 'Cause ultimately, like, this is one of the most ruthless, cutthroat industries there is, you know. If you're not like doing this for the right reasons, if you're not doing the shit you want to do, like having fun, loving every minute of it, like, I don't know, that's kind of sad.
Well, that's why you don't want to just pay your way into making a really expensive project. Like, you're supposed to be doing this for the passion.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an outlet for someone who is creative. And I feel like I've been reminded over the years to remember that you're supposed to be in love with the process, because sometimes in those big projects you do, or when you're pumping out a lot of music at once, it can feel a bit like work. Maybe you don't want to go and like perfect the song and trim things and work on something and polish it, rather than just making something new and continuously like have this scrapbook going. So I feel like it's important to treat it like work and hit deadlines and like have an end product. But then also remember, like, okay, I got into this shit because it was fun. Like, I started writing because it was fun.
Because it was fun. Yeah.
Like, if no one was on earth, I would be doing this. And if you lose that, then I feel like it's going to come out in your music. And people, yeah, it's just not believable.
I love how you worded that there. Like, the word fun as well, because like that just resonates with me so deeply. Like, that's why I'm still here. You know, that's why I'm in this chair. Yeah. I'm not you know, Demo to Limo doesn't earn me any money. You know, putting this out, I pay a subscription to put this shit out, but like, I'm having a blast talking to you and to the people that come on the show and like learning about their art, their passion. Like, and the same thing goes for mixing and all that. Like, you know, a lot of the stuff that I work on like never gets put out. A lot of the work that the artists who I'm working with all the time, they're just sitting on a gold mine of stuff. But like, I had fun working on it with them, and I have memories of that. And like, in the moment, that journey was beautiful. Like, we enjoyed every minute of it. And you know, if we do get streams, that's a bonus. That's the bonus. The money, the streams, the whatever, that's all extra. We're doing this, you know, because this is the sport. We're doing this for the sport, right? Like, fall in love with the game. I mean, excuse me. When I very first started recording was in a basement with my cousin, and we had like a USB, like what a secretary would use at an elementary school, like a pencil. They looked like a pencil.
I know exactly, like the Logitech ones.
Logitech pencil mic.
Yeah.
And some cracked version of who knows what we were using at the time, Audacity or whatever, and just, you know, we'd go on LimeWire, Kazaa, and like steal Fabulous Eminem G-Unit beats and then write lyrics to them and like put our songs out. We didn't know what a compressor was. I didn't know what reverb was. I didn't know anything. Like, I still have some of those demos. I'd love to go back and listen to how raw they were, but that experience was left such a mark on me at the time that like, that's why I'm here today, is because I loved making songs that much that I'm here like 20 years later, still doing it now, you know, making a living doing it, which is unbelievable. But the amount of, you know, roadblocks and hurdles and disappointment over the years is tremendous. But what has kept me going is that original love for why I got into it, you know?
Yeah.
What was your first experience recording like? I can't remember if we've talked about that. Maybe on a previous episode. If we have, I'd love to hear about it again though. Like,
I was very similar to you. Mine was in Whistler. I just had my first knee surgery. It was a meniscus tear. So you're basically not supposed to bear weight for a few weeks. You're pretty much not able to ski, bike, do all the things that I love doing. So I was confined to this loft in the village of Whistler, and my friends would all go skiing, and I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? And I would just smoke weed and started writing verses. Like, I loved music, and I was like, okay, no one's around. I can be vulnerable and do this.
no one's going to judge me.
Yeah. Because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, no formal training musically whatsoever. And I just had this white MacBook back when they made the black and
plastic
white
MacBook. I had the same one. Yeah.
And I just sat up at the bar we had in our place, and I set up the GarageBand with a little webcam mic, and that's what I used.
Oh, literally the built-in mic.
Yeah, and it worked out great. I had my lyrics written on the computer.
Yeah.
And I just basically put my mouth nice and close to the front of the screen, and I would just rap. And it was like,
yeah,
for me, looking back, if I heard the song, I'd probably be very embarrassed.
Sure.
Just like from a sonic perspective.
Yeah.
But listening back and hearing my own voice over a beat and hearing a song that I built
was magic.
Like, when I woke up, this shit did not exist.
Yeah.
And I made it, and now it
created
exists.
Something here.
And now I can bounce it out of GarageBand. It's a file. I can put it on my phone. I can listen in headphones and walk through the village.
Crazy.
Like, it felt surreal to watch that come to fruition. And I think, like you, I was kind of captivated by that process and like a little bit obsessed, to be honest. I would finish a song and listen to it like 50, 60, like an unhealthy amount of times till I was sick of it.
Yeah.
And then I would make another one.
Yeah.
And I would do the same thing. So yeah, you got to be in love with it. And I had no idea how much I needed to learn or what was ahead.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I mean, your ears aren't trained.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had perfected a song. When I was done, I thought it was ready for the radio. And I couldn't tell the difference between like Beyonce's song and the one I just recorded on my laptop. So I think that was a bit of a humbling experience, like going to school, meeting other artists, engineers, people who have been doing it a lot longer than me.
Yeah.
And then realizing like, okay, there is a lot to like study and learn. And there's right and wrong for some things. There's a lot of creative freedom as well. So I think it's just finding out how to do things properly.
Yeah.
Like leave enough headroom, use the right plugins, not too many of them.
Yeah.
There's all these things you kind of learn throughout the way. But yeah, I guess that was the first time. I was 18. I'm 32 now. So it's been 14 years from the day I like wrote a verse on paper.
Yeah. Do you remember like the first song you shared with friends?
I remember, that's a good question. I think I used to just show them to my homies that were like coming back from skiing.
Yeah.
A lot of them didn't understand what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Some of them would be like, dude, this sucks. This is garbage.
Yeah.
And then other people were more receptive, especially people who did music that thought it was cool that I had recorded my own project or written something.
They could respect what you were attempting, or, you know, yeah.
Exactly. So I don't think there was much sharing, to be completely honest. Initially, it was genuinely for myself and my own ears.
Yeah.
And then I realized after a few years, like my love for it, my passion for it, my drive for it wasn't really going away. And I did feel like, okay, when I have the chance, like I'm going to buy a better mic, I'm going to buy a better interface, I'm going to buy a better setup so that I can do this shit myself. And then eventually that led me to Nimbus, because I felt like having formal training, getting put in that network would be super helpful. And just living in Vancouver, it felt like a decent hub.
Yeah.
I did look at Toronto, but ultimately I wanted to be on the West Coast and just stay on this side. And different culture, different lifestyle. So,
Do you remember what were your expectations going into school? Was it like, well, I'm going to be famous when I come out of this place, or was it more just I want to network, I want to meet like-minded people? Was it I want to improve my skills? Was there one thing in particular, maybe a mixture of those?
I think initially when I started, it was almost like a artist development mindset.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go in here, I'm going to meet photographers, I'm going to meet a manager, I'm going to link up with the venues, and things are going to pop off like right away. Didn't happen. Not the case. Again, just very humbling experience, because all of a sudden you are in a room with people that are sometimes less advanced, sometimes more, but all super driven and passionate and obsessed. And you realize that, okay, I'm not here to become famous at the end of these 12 months. Like, that shouldn't be my mindset. So I think it's more of a mindset shift that happened in school.
Nice.
And realizing that, okay, this is like a bit of a lifestyle, and it does consume people's lives, and they do it at home, and they're probably not going to quit randomly. Like, this is something that people carry out throughout life. So I think I've just learned to try to fall in love more with the process of it, and just connecting with different people, like different engineers, different producers. Like, there's nothing better than, as an artist, growing and learning from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And I think
Huge.
that ultimately is what I gained from that school, is like, people come from different backgrounds, people have specific skill sets, and you fit in that network somehow. Like, you do have something to bring to the table. And I still am in contact with a lot of people from school. So it kind of helped me like assimilate to Vancouver as well.
Yeah, it's a really good, culture, not shock, but introduction, culture introduction. That was one of the biggest takeaways for me, at least, was, studio etiquette and, a true appreciation for like what's actually involved in the craft.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like specific skills that I can apply to one thing, but just more of like an overall idea of like, welcome to music, like this is the world, like sleeping in the studio and, schedules, booking, like, because they had us like booking different rooms, and actually like pretending we were not pretending, but like being a producer, hiring talent, coordinating. So it was like we were there in the industry working while still at school and getting a real taste for all of it. And that was really cool for me.
It was the fact that we had classrooms that were actually just music studios.
Yeah.
It wasn't in theory. It was very hands-on.
Yes.
We had 24/7 access to all the studios. I mean, you had to book them out on some level, but you still had creative spaces to chill. You had couches to sleep on, baffles to sleep on. Pretty unique experience, I would say. Not a lot of people get to see that side of things.
Oh no, it was the real deal. It was like there was no like boot camp. We were like we were at war like right away, in a sense, which was so cool. A lot of the instructors were actively, not just like had been a producer, but actively like big names working with big bands, and then teaching us on the weekends and stuff. And it was like, wow, this shit's cool. Like, that could be us. Like, hearing their stories, showing us mixes that they were working on of like a current band, and being like, oh my God, maybe one day I'll sound that good. All that shit was so valuable. It definitely was. I got to admit, I was a little surprised and irritated by the fact that some of my classmates at the time had like zero musical experience.
Okay.
I was coming from, like you, a place of, I've been doing this for years. I'm taking this really seriously. I want to better my skills. And then some of the people that were at school were just like, oh, I don't know, there was sort of the attitude like, let me try this out type of thing.
I don't think there was a qualifying process.
There definitely
or an
wasn't.
acceptance process.
That was
it was
the
like,
reason.
can you
Yeah.
afford to go here?
Can you afford to go here? And that's what it was. And I guess I was kind of hoping You know, my young early 20s, big ego, just full of, you know, pride and you know, I guess I was expecting people to be on that level that I thought that I was on, and I felt a little bit yeah, disrespected. I don't know if that's the right word, but it was like, oh, shouldn't we all like, I wanted like more competition almost. If that sounds kind of egotistical, but I don't know. It was just a weird thing for me that like you have never put a song out like you own an iPod. That was your prerequisite, and I found that strange.
It's going to be different for every intake.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to have some pretty like heavy hitters in my group.
Yeah.
So that was like a little intimidating,
Yeah.
but also super helpful. Just to see what DAWs they use, their processes, and just like tips and tricks, because you're around each other 24/7, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like it feels like a bit of a family.
Oh, we were our group was so close, man. Yeah.
12 months
absolutely.
straight.
Yeah.
You don't really have a break. And you're all like, the deadlines are stressful, like when you have to get your projects in. So you are in it together. Universities like that, you know, you're all kind of in the same boat, going in the same direction, and you build bonds through that.
Yeah.
I did like going into big studios and seeing big mixing boards and using, you know, different speakers that you could reference throughout. And these things I just hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
I had recorded on my own a ton, and even the studios I had gone to were like makeshift home studios where there was a bit of gear or, you know, an isolation booth, but it wasn't a full blown like studio that
Right.
costs a couple $100 an hour.
Yeah.
So that was fun, getting photos in front of the board and
Oh, yeah.
whatever else. And just feeling like, oh, I'm really in this.
Yes.
I'm a part of this. I've made a commitment. And it kind of makes you level up in a lot of ways, because you're no longer complacent with what you're doing, and you're realizing like there's a lot more steps on this ladder.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was like, in a sense, I'm climbing the ladder, but the rabbit hole's also getting deeper. Like the void has just gotten so much bigger. It's like getting a better telescope and realizing that there's something outside the solar system. Like there's a galaxy, and you know what I mean? Like to use a metaphor like that, but it was like, oh shit, we got a long way to go still.
Yeah, that's why it's so humbling.
Yeah.
Especially when you leave that school, because I feel like any private school that focuses on music, I wouldn't say there's a high rate of job placement. A lot of people are trying to pursue their own careers as well. So you're not necessarily applying. You're just using the skills you've now learned to better your navigation through the career. But yeah, dude, I'm very thankful I went, because I don't know if would have stuck with music, or if I would have gotten to this level this fast. I think it expedited a lot of my learning.
Without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, I really don't think that I have regrets. It was such a good experience for me. I'm still in touch with a lot of those people, instructors as well, for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, just it was the shift, that it was like a milestone. It was a shifting point for my attitude, really, more than anything. Yeah, so I look back on it fondly all the time. I still like find photos of us like making makeshift beds out of baffles and things like that, and like look at this timestamp on the photo. It's like 4 a.m. and we have class at like 7, and but it was fun. Like it was so much fun. We were like young and just loving every minute of it, and really like, you know, yeah, I mean, just nothing but fond memories looking back on all that. Do you remember, maybe it happened at school, maybe it was before school, like as far as from the aspect of a producer and engineer, like what was a big milestone for you, going from, maybe it was going from the built-in MacBook microphone to buying your first mic, or maybe it was learning a new mixing technique. Can you recall like early in your career one big thing that really like made you realize like, oh, like now I'm like making music, or now I've like really leveled up here, you know? You're not getting at?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest eye-opener for me was having songs mastered for the first time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a guy, Jay, from Conduction Mastering in Ottawa. You've used him before. Yeah, I think being able to hand off a project where you don't understand the mastering process and how valuable it is, and then you hand that off and you get it back, and it's not a new song, but it just, again, is leveled properly for all systems. And I feel like that, for me, was really nice. Jay did a little bit more than a typical mastering engineer, in the sense that I would stem out like some of my vocals.
Oh, right on.
And I would separate the beat versus the vocals. So he had a lot more, he could play with it a lot more.
Yeah.
And probably did some major EQing on the vocals and did his own chain, rather than giving him like
one stereo file to work off of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like he knew at the time. I was only a couple years in, didn't have a ton of experience with this process. And he was like, okay, so this is how you're going to bounce it. This is how you're going to share it. And it just gave him more room to clean up my mix, ultimately.
Very cool. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, stem mastering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people probably don't even, some people who are listening don't even know what mastering is. Maybe we can give them like a quick definition of mastering and then explain what stem mastering is. Do you want to try and tackle that?
Yeah, sure. So once you record in whatever DAW you're using, and the music's ready, the vocals are ready, everything sounds cohesive to the point where you feel it's ready to share, and you want to bounce that into one file, typically you want to master it so that this file that you've mixed and you've been listening to for a long time, even though it might sound great on your speakers or headphones or whatever you're using to make this mix, you want to attenuate it for car speakers, for Bluetooth speakers, for AirPods, for Skullcandy headphones, like everything that's out there that people are going to listen to, or even the cell phone itself. And what mastering does, I think, is attenuates all of those things and creates a more balanced mix that's going to sound good on everything. And it just caters to the general public is what it does.
Totally. Yeah. To a certain degree, I mean, there are definitely arguments about how much a mastering engineer should do, versus like, just give me that 5%, or, I need help make this better.
Yeah.
And I know for me, like earlier in my career, I leaned on the mastering engineer for help because I didn't have the skills yet.
Yeah.
And I've had many conversations with my friend Garrett, shout out to G Ward, about this. He's also a really talented engineer and producer here in Vancouver. And his mixes are sounding so good these days. He's like, really, really dialing in his sound. And he started using Chris Geringer, who is like the top 5% of mastering engineers on planet Earth, like Dua Lipa, everybody, right? And we've sat down and like A/B, so like compared his home mastering of just like making his mix louder versus what the mastering engineer and what Chris Geringer is doing. And so, we're both at this point now in our careers where we're really happy with we got a hand on mixing now, and like, okay, we're getting the results we want. We don't really want the mastering engineer to fuck shit up, to get too heavy handed and like really saturate and compress and kind of change the sound that we've got. We're just looking for tighten up my low end a little bit. You know what I mean? And I don't know if there is a right or a wrong answer. I think it depends on maybe where, like a lot of things, where you're at in your career, how much you're willing to, how much freedom you're willing to give your art to someone else to do their thing. But to get back to, Garrett and Chris Geringer, like I'm hearing like a 5% difference. And this is like hundreds of American dollars for like a 5% difference. Mm-hmm. But it's done in it's like, we can't do that. It's like 40 years of experience, a $80,000 sound system in a perfect room to get like exactly what we're looking for. Like this little tweak where it's like, okay, now it's finished. You didn't fuck my shit up, but you finished it for me. And then you have the other side, like where I've been down that road for years, where I was like, my mixes aren't good. Why don't I sound like Jack Harlow and Drake and Travis Scott? What's missing? Oh, it must be a mastering. It must be a mastering engineer. I got to find a good mastering engineer to send my stuff to make it better. And my opinion on that has changed 100% in the last like 5 to 7 years, because my skills have gotten better. So that was a long tangent on mastering, but I wanted to share that little piece with you because I think it's really important. Now we're going to talk about stem mastering, which is where you're essentially sending the mastering engineer not one file to manipulate and tweak and make, sound perfect on multiple systems, but you're sending stems, which we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, which are individual components. But in this case, it'll be like the finished vocal with effects, reverb and everything, as one stereo file, maybe drums as a separate file, and then all the music as one separate file. Or how were you doing? Do you remember how you did it?
I think I was bouncing all the vocals out at like minus 10 dB on the mix bus.
Okay.
So that he had tons of headroom.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would split the chorus and the verses. That would be the 2 files, and then the beat as a separate file, but always tons of headroom on anything I bounced. He wanted minus 10 dB. Again, my recordings probably weren't done super well. Just lack of experience. So I was trying to give him the opportunity to salvage whatever I had built. Again, now like my process is so different, and I am trying to get like better ingredients and a little more strategic with, your approach to Logic or Pro Tools and just building good beds, because you want your engineer to receive them, or even for yourself when you're mixing, is like, you want to work with something that's already sounding pretty fucking good.
Do yourself a favor, right?
And then from there, you can take something that's already pretty fucking good and make it that much better, rather than, okay, let's just rush this. Let's not get everything dialed in and just like get pen to paper or get these ideas out and we'll fix it in post. I think that's a terrible mindset. And like I've had it before, and now I really stress, don't rush the process of recording.
Yeah.
Like, take your time with it.
Yeah.
You'll have the world of time to do the mixing and mastering and pick album art and name the song and upload it and do all that shit. But like, get your mic set up, get your compression set up, make sure your first take isn't the one you're using. Like, listen back to it and see how it sounds. Like, there's
warm up your voice, maybe even like
that's a big one. Yeah, there's a lot of variables
so
to
many
it.
things. I'm so glad you're talking about this. So please, please continue. It's so huge, though, man.
And so that was my stem mastering. Obviously now the process is very different. I think like any professional song, or most of them, you would have stems for the music. That way the engineer can mute things. A lot of the stems that I've purchased and gotten from producers sound great, but they're super busy. And I'll often go through, even before I give them to you, and mute out a couple things, hide them, that way you don't even see them, and give my space or my music some space for my vocal. Because I think producers, they just want to build something loud and busy to the point where there isn't even room for a vocal, and they throw a limiter on it just to make it sound big and sellable. So I get their point of view. From my point of view, I want to be able to download the stems, mute a bunch of shit, give myself some space, and then put more emphasis on the stems that are still there and make them individually sound better. Because we've talked about this in school, is like the best songs, most of them super simple.
So simple.
Not a ton of shit going on. Only a few stems, but the stems sound great and they're super cohesive, and there's tons of room for that vocal to breathe. And then when the vocal's gone, the music can come back and have the space. It's like, it's just well balanced.
100%. It's the French baguette again, like we were talking about.
Oh, screen. Oh, maybe people want to watch the screensaver while we talk.
My bad. My bad.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. What were you saying just a second ago?
Just with
oh
mastering
yeah,
with
stems leave
yeah.
and producers making the beat too busy. Okay, have you heard the new Charlie Puth?
Charlie Puth. No, I saw that it was released. I definitely am a fan of a few of his songs, but I haven't heard the new stuff.
There's a song on there, Charlie Be Quiet, and I think it's vocal, guitar, drum. Like it's this, like, and there's a bass in there, but it's not like 49 things. And if it is, someone's a wizard who's mixing it, making it sound all the same. But what I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to reinforce the point you were making, is that like, it's my favorite song on the new project. It's goddamn simple. It's just so simple. There's so much room for the vocal. The vocal's not this new like hyper compressed sound that you hear everywhere. It's like, it sounds natural. It sounds like a guy singing on a mic again. But then there's like space for everything else. And it's just, that comes down to production choice. When you have a song that's put together well, like when you have a song that's recorded well, the next step, the mixing, kind of falls together. It just, all the things land where they need to land. You're not fighting for space for things. But again, that has to all kind of be considered at the beginning. What are we going for here? Do we need all of this? Maybe less is more. I think actually more often than not, less is more.
Yeah, I don't know about his most recent project, but I've seen a lot of videos in how he built his beats and recorded things in previous ones. And he's super hands-on. Like, he's a full-blown musician, plays all the instruments, sings very, very well. So I think that's another reason why his ear is so trained and so locked in. So he's going to be more experimental and able to have like a lot of growth throughout his career, because he's working with like a lot of raw talent. And there's videos out there, if anyone wants to watch them, of him recreating beats, or even like starting beats that he eventually used. And you're watching the construction, and, he's like flipping sounds that he recorded, playing them backwards, doing all this weird stuff. And you can just tell his like expertise is like super high. And in the background, he's got 6 guitars and multiple pianos, and you're like, this is his life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll definitely have to listen to it.
That's really cool. I didn't realize that he was so involved in the production, but it makes sense when you hear it. What it sounds like to me is that he's making custom beats for his voice. To me, it's not like, oh, let's pick some stuff that I like and then try and work around it. It really feels like he's constructing shit from the ground up, custom, so tailored to him. And being a musician, I mean, that makes sense. He's in there. He's in the kitchen right from the beginning. So yeah, I'm a big fan of what he's doing right now. Really got a great sound. So yeah, what else do we need to talk about? Like mastering, where we were on mastering a few minutes ago before that. I mean, we talked a little bit briefly about performing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've performed a couple times. I haven't done it in a few years.
Yeah.
Obviously the pandemic shut everyone's lives down for a long time. It's something I feel confident about doing again.
Yeah.
Especially as the music's gotten better and better. The performances in the projects are better. The mastering's better. The mix, like the whole operation is a lot stronger. So I would definitely want to get into it. It's more of a time management thing at this point.
Right.
And just making sure that, when I do it, I want to do it properly. And make sure that I can sustain it, rather than not do one for a few months. I'd rather have some kind of schedule built out. So I think that's why 2023 is like a very realistic timeline. And use everything that I've learned in my current job, through school, and building this last project into how I'm going to approach the performance side of things. I think it's all going to be super helpful in creating a more whole performance.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to,
nowadays really have the whole package, you know, and learn. This goes back to like, you know, if you're gonna perform the song, you better have it memorized, you know, and you like not writing a lot of stuff lately is gonna help with that because it's already locked in, you know, in your brain. But you know, I remind people this all the time that are doing a 16 bar verse in 4 takes because they don't have the stamina or like don't have it memorized, and I'm like, you want to perform this eventually, right? Like maybe we need to restructure this a little bit. Maybe you need to take some words out so you can have a chance to breathe. So there's a whole new set of skills and things to consider when you start stepping outside of the booth, right, into the real world. And I can't actually recall if I've seen you perform now that I think about it. I don't think I have, but when that happens, believe me, I'll be front row. I'm looking forward to that.
I think the last time I did it was at Red Room, and Uncle Ricky was
he your DJ?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or I don't know if he goes by just Ricky now, but yeah, he was, I think it was his show, and he had a bunch of different artists go through. I think I was like second to perform, and yeah, I mean, cool venue, cool spot. Again, I felt like I did that and didn't really have follow-up, just things got busy.
Yeah.
But it's fun, man. It's fun to share your work in front of people. Like, they're all very receptive. I also performed at Fortune once. I think I was at Nimbus at the time and had performed there for some like contest that was being judged. And that went well. It's been fun, but I just feel like that was quite some years ago, and I would have a very different level of confidence and approach and ability, just straight up.
Are you thinking maybe starting smaller, like it blends open mic or something like that?
Yeah, just go to Starbucks.
Because a lot of those coffee houses do have like open mics with all different kinds of artists. I mean, literally.
I think I want to go and like scope it out, suss it out, see other people perform, maybe just sit and watch some of those spots. I also performed at the end of graduation. I think it's called Enzo or Enza. We had rented out this space.
Oh, Anza
Club.
Yeah, I've never been there.
And I performed in front of our school as my
part
of my graduation. I did 3 songs with this guy Jotham, and he was playing acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And I had a mic, and we basically practiced for 3 days straight. He got very little notice, learned the songs. It was like, full 3 songs, 3 verses in each, chorus, and I performed them. And it was those things that I've been through where I'm like, okay, if I was capable of that like so long ago, with my new frame of mind and just experience, like it's going to go well. So coffee shops, I'd probably be down for opening for people, just whatever opportunities are out there.
Yeah. I mean, now things are back to normal, so it shouldn't be too hard. So yeah, that's exciting. Because that's like like a whole nother can of worms. But you know, you're obviously like, you know, a confident guy and charismatic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you on stage when that does happen. So can you talk a little bit about what you're working on right now that's new, and like the next, you know, going into 2023? Like, what can people expect?
Yeah, so as you know, we have a few songs finished, ready, mastered that I'm sitting on. I do have an EP in mind. It's called Wedding Day Rain, and I wanted it to be a 5-song project. It's going to use some of the songs that we have finished, and there'll be a couple more. That's probably the next project. I might do singles in between. You know, no plans for a video or anything at this point. I think ultimately pushing more music out, and then doing the performances is probably the trajectory that I'm going to take. And just focus on keep pumping out music. Like, I've been finally now, because summer was absolutely fucking insane with traveling and everything, but I've finally had a chance to like sit and start recording music again. and it's been coming out like crazy because I feel like it's been built up all summer. Like I haven't had that outlet. So I'm again sitting on like probably 25 to 35 like complete songs over new beats.
Damn.
And I just need to figure out like, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to do a bunch of singles and take that Russ method, which I wanted to do before I took this job, or do another full album after this EP? There's definitely no shortage of like creativity from myself. I don't seem to hit like a writer's block or lack of love for the process. So yeah, I think singles and this EP, and hopefully get that out before the end of the year. Yeah.
Which is coming up, and I mean we're almost November here, so
8 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so right around the corner.
Yeah. We'll see.
Are you doing your artwork?
Yeah.
You've done a lot of your own artwork in the past.
Yeah, I've spoken to people before who do artwork, specifically like on iPads or however they approach it. It's super expensive, to be honest, to pay someone to do your art, which I fully understand. So I've always just felt like I'll just do it myself. I've done pretty much everything. Apart from actual photographers shooting me, I'll always do the editing of the raw files typically, or at least manipulate them and make them into artwork. I think with apps on our phone now and computers and everything, it is super accessible and attainable for artists to just take it into their own hands, and it gives you the chance to try to make something that's aligned with the song, right? Like this is the first impression that people see. It's kind of a vibe that they're going to get off the artwork. There's nothing better than a good song with good artwork. It's kind of nice, right?
I hate when artists just have like a lazy looking artwork or just like a bad album cover. Just that annoys me.
Yeah.
I know it's not about the art. Like it's music, but like you can hire anyone you want, and that's what you came up with. Like sometimes that shit just gets to me. But yeah, you don't seem to suffer from that, luckily, and you know, you're obviously super like multi-talented. What apps are you using to make the artwork, like, or the ones that you have done in the past?
So on the Mac, I'll use Affinity Photo. Typically, it's good for editing raw files. It's basically just like Photoshop, Adobe.
Cool.
And then on the phone, I use something that's called Over, or it might be called Studio now. But essentially, yeah, it gives full resolution and opportunities to add text, to change backdrops, to highlight certain elements. Like it's pretty hands-on and has a lot of different things you can adjust, which is pretty shocking, and it's a free app. So I use that, and then you can bounce it out as like a full legitimate file to upload, to any of the platforms.
Did you ever try Comic Life?
I've never heard of it.
Okay.
No.
I used that one back in the day. I think I either stole it or got it free, but I used it specifically because it let you put text onto the art.
Yeah.
And it had you could like go to one of those websites, download a bunch of custom fonts, and then upload it into Comic Life and then use those fonts.
Yeah.
And I've never released anything that I made on Comic Life, but I spent hours and hours back in the day, like experimenting, making album covers for myself, using text, trying different fonts, things like that, and had a lot of fun doing that. But I'm always of the, you know, philosophy that if someone can do it better than you, then hire them to do it. You know, obviously that's not realistic for everyone, especially if you're young and starting out. But like, if you want to stand out and you're taking your music and your career seriously, like invest in it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, you know, get the right person for the right job. So I didn't end up making my own album cover. Yeah. But Comic Life was a really cool app. So I'll have to check out this other one that you've mentioned, because I still enjoy like just playing around with stuff like that, you know, even if I'm not going to put it out. I find that it's just fun to play with. Yeah. So, I mean, was there anything that you wanted to like talk about today in particular?
Not really. I just want to congratulate you on this new space.
Oh, thanks, man.
It looks super sick. I know you got this new booth here as well.
Yeah, the new vocal
so you can
booth.
track on site.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely really good feng shui in here.
It feels good. It feels good. Yeah, I got the best landlord in the world. Shout out to Steve. Good friend of mine, and you know, always good vibes. So I feel, yeah, I mean, I feel extremely fortunate to be here. I love it here, you know, to my DIY acoustic treatment and whatnot, but it sounds great. My mixes are turning out really, really good. Loving the Genelec speakers in here, and we got space to do the podcast in here now. So
yeah, this is dope.
This is dope. I think this is going to become like a regular thing. I mean, I took a year off of the pandemic, and it's fascinating how momentum is a real thing. Like momentum, dude, is a universal law. Okay, let me expand on that for a sec. When I don't know if I will reveal the numbers here on the show, but let me just say this. At the end of 2021 was when the podcast peaked in like listeners. And at the time I was using SoundCloud as my host, where I would upload a show, and SoundCloud would push it out to all the different platforms. But as I had a premium membership, I had access to like analytics, and I could go and look at all these details and things, and what countries were listening the most, and what time of day, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I saw the number of downloads every episode was getting, and it was going up. It just went up and up and up from episode 1 to episode, where did we end up? Like 35 before the pandemic.
Because you were dropping them weekly, right? Or monthly?
I was doing them monthly back then.
But it was consistent.
I was consistent.
Every month.
I was consistent, and it was new guests all the time. It was fun. And I had reached a number. I took 1 year off because of the pandemic, because I didn't want to do Zoom podcasts, because I like sitting and looking people in the eye and being in the same room as them. So I took a year off, and it was sort of like, maybe I'm done. Like maybe that was just a thing that we did. And, you know, things have changed now. I've moved on. I'm in a new studio. Maybe Demo Telemo is history. And then I just like got a urge to do it again. And we picked it up, and, you know, texted people. Sure, I'd love to come on. Like, that's the nice thing about, you know, when I was at 2Track before, I met a lot of people. You know, I was like in the thick of things. So I networked a lot, and I feel like I have a big circle of people that I can reach out to, and I'm, strong community of people. So yeah, got new guests and things like that, and pre-recorded several episodes, which have yet to come out. And then once the first one of those new episodes came out after that year, I saw another number, and it wasn't like the Instagram following count disappeared. It wasn't like I ever left. I've still been active on Instagram. All these things have still existed. The show never disappeared. The show has always been there. The episodes are available. It's just I didn't put an episode out for a year or so. And that new number is way different than where we ended up. And all the subsequent episodes that have come out, you know, Tyler Pearson, AJ, Reve, which are the last 3 episodes that I've put out, very different number. So momentum is a real thing. And it's crazy how that snowball is going to have to start to roll down the hill again and accumulate snowflakes again, because, man, you gotta put shit out consistently in this world. And I now that I've witnessed it firsthand, I mean, I always used to preach that to everyone because I saw how much success people like Jamon were having when I was working closely with him, seeing, you know, kind of numbers he was putting out, and just how hard he was working and how dedicated he was, and seeing, okay, that's the standard that I have to live by, and all the artists that I work with follow Jamon. He's setting the blueprint. Be consistent, but my God, is it ever real? Like, you have to be consistent. There's far too much content on the internet for people just are spoiled for choice now. So if you disappear, you're gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they'll
you'll
find
get buried.
something else. You'll
Yeah.
get buried. They'll find something else to consume. So I am now committed to putting an episode out every 2 weeks. I do them a little bit in advance so that I'm scrambling to put one out. And it's going to take us a while to get back to that number.
Well, hopefully now that you are planning on filming some of them, you'll have a visual attachment,
Yeah.
which will also add to more subscribers, more listeners.
I think so. That's the idea anyhow. I mean, this is going to be the new standard that what, it's going to be available on YouTube going forward, and every episode will be filmed.
Yeah.
But that's the world that we're living in now. We're in the Instagram, TikTok world. Like, people just, video clips and video content is kind of the standard right now. And so I'm really late, but we're here now. And I'm excited to see like how this builds and how it grows, because I've got the mic template set up, the conversation thing. We're 50 episodes deep. I've got all that figured out now. We just set up a tripod, and hopefully more people notice.
I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be the first person on video. It's pretty high.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I couldn't have thought of a better guest, so I'm really glad we did this. Why don't we wrap it up there? This has been really, really good. We got to talk about the whole journey and where we're at now and where we're going. So for people who are interested in checking Tristan out, it's Tristan Maroney on Apple Music, Spotify. The Totally Maybe album is out. That's the one that we worked on together. There will be there's a couple of singles as well since then, and there's going to be a lot of new stuff in 2023 and even before then. So stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. Thanks, Max. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Max Deshaw, Tristan Maroney, Demo to Limo. Have a great week. Peace.
Let's go, buddy.